This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Friday morning break with me, Poppy Gibson. Morning, Tom, I can see is already listening in, and welcome to everyone who's listening live. If you're listening live, it's the 12th of January, which I cannot accept that we're already into double digits in January, but I hope the new year's treating you well. Whenever you're listening, I hope that 2024 is being a positive, happy, kind one to you so far. And it's very apt, actually, that our guest today is someone who's here to talk to us a bit more about our planet, our environment, education, and kind of the basics that we need to continue. We have many more years on top of 2024. So our guest will be joining us shortly. In the meantime, just some housekeeping for anyone listening live. Good morning, David. I can see one of our super fans who's listening in. If you do have any questions for Dr. Elsa while our show is on today, you can type if you're listening live on the Podbean app just by using the little chat function. Or if you're listening back, then unfortunately, you can't, but Elsa will let us know at the end of the show some ways that you can get in touch with her if you do wish to carry on some of these important conversations. Thank you, David, who sent me, I hope that's a cup of chai latte on this Friday. Definitely feeling like I need some more spices in my life this week. It's certainly been a bit of a grey one here in London. How has your week been, though? Do feel free to tell me about your week in the chat. Hopefully it's been a good one. I'm sure we're all grateful that it's Friday. And like I say, the weekend is just hours away. We'll also be asking Elsa about what her weekend plans are and plans for 2024. I don't know if you're someone who set yourself some New Year's resolutions. I put a video on my socials this week about how perhaps we shouldn't question whether it's a new year, new me, but how we can be perhaps a new year better me. What are some small habits, some small behaviours that we can adapt to have a more positive 2024 rather than trying to think we need to change? Because I'm sure you know, a leopard can't really change its spots. So how instead can we find a more happy and healthy way of living? Elsa will be joining us shortly, and welcome to everyone who is listening in live. If you're listening on the website, unfortunately, we can't take any questions from you there, but you can get involved on our Twitter threads as Teacher Talk Radio will be posting through the morning, and we can engage with you on there. Elsa, unfortunately, I can't invite you as a speaker just yet. You may want to leave the link and jump back in to join us, and we can hopefully then invite you as our guest speaker. Elsa's a very interesting guest, and I'm very pleased she's here to talk to us today because we'll be hearing about what led her to her current role and her interest in supporting our education and the way that we can support that in our schools as well and outside of our schools. I wonder whether geography, for example, was something that you enjoyed when you were at school. That's one facet we see of environmental sustainability education. It's coincidentally, my middle child, Griff, came home from school yesterday saying he now knows about a new job he wants to do, and he wants to be a geographer. I'm not sure if that is a word. I'll have to ask Elsa about that when she joins us lately. Is a geographer a career? He then told me he would basically like a job where he could travel around the world, seeing lots of different countries. So maybe there is something. I told him maybe that's called backpacking. But if any of you are into geography, do also let us know in the chat, and we can let Elsa know about your experiences. Just communicating with Elsa now to let her know that unfortunately we can't quite add her just yet. We know we always like to have some gremlins in the system on a Friday just to scare me, just to make me panic on a Friday morning. It's such a treat to worry about whether my guests can join, but I'm sure that Dr. Elsa will be joining shortly. David is saying in the chat that he loved geography, just not good for the exams. Yeah, I'm sure many of our listeners agree as you, David. The exams are not always the highlight of learning. this thing I love about teaching primary education is we don't have exams on our degrees. It's all about the coursework, the learning, and then, of course, your teaching placements if our students do go on to be a teacher. And morning, I can see Emma has just joined us in the chat as well. So good morning, Emma. Hope your week's going well. We are going to be joined by Dr. Elsa Lee later today. He'll be talking to us about environmental sustainability education. That sounds like a lot on a Friday. But I'm sure that we will be all learning lots and lots this morning about that topic. In the meantime, while we're thinking about geography, where's the favourite place that you've been? I know some of you, if you follow me on socials, will have seen I've just booked tickets to go to Saudi Arabia. I'll be taking my family to Saudi Arabia to Tabuk after the Easter break. So I'll be there, a chance to deliver some CPD in a school, and thought what better thing to do than take my 3 children along for the ride. So a chance for them to have a real cultural experience of something very different to what they experience here in England. But where have your favourite places been that you have travelled? Hi Elsa, I see you're typing in the chat. Unfortunately, it's not letting me add you as a speaker just yet, but if you try logging out and logging back in, or sometimes if you delete Podbean and reinstall, but we will wait very patiently for you in the meantime. But unfortunately, it's not enabling you to be a speaker at the moment. Right, and so on to the next question. We can just enjoy having a chat this morning while we wait, hopefully, for Elsa to log out and log back in. We think about our favourite places we've been, and I wonder also, where are the places on your bucket list where you would love to go? So for me, number 1 is Japan. I would absolutely love to go and visit Japan. I'm not really worried about where, although Tokyo is high on the list, but I just think the Japanese culture looks incredible and fascinating, and that's certainly up there in the kind of 5-year traveling plan to get to go to Japan. I wonder, what about you? Do feel free to tell me about the places that you would love to visit using the chat function. I can see Elsa, you have rejoined us in the studio. However, it's still not allowing me to let you join. I'm not sure if you verified your email from when you set up your Podbean account, but if you check your emails, it might be that you just need to verify. But what I'll do in the meantime, Elsa, I will just send you an invitation to be a speaker to your email. But sometimes I know if we don't have, unfortunately, if we don't have the emails verified, it's a little bit annoying. It doesn't always let people join as speakers. But as I say, don't worry, we're very mindful here on Teachers Talk Radio. And just while I'm typing Elsa this email and sending her the link, do feel free to join me in the chat with any comments on places you've been or places you would love to go. I was trying to think, what are my other top 3? So number 1, Japan. Number 2, I'm not sure. I've got as far as number 1, but I'm not very. I don't have very good attention spans. I think I got as far as number 1, but the other one probably India. And really excited. I know some of you who follow me on socials will know that I'm taking 4 students to Calcutta, or Cal, as my friend from Mumbai told me we can call it in a friendly way. We're taking them to Calcutta in July. Super excited. So India was the other place on the bucket list. So really excited to hopefully tick that off in July. We've got some people telling us their favourite places in the chat. Elsa, unfortunately, it's still not letting you join at the moment. I can see that you're here in the studio, but it's just not letting me invite you as a speaker. Just inviting you now. But as I say, don't worry, we will get there eventually. I've just followed you back, Elsa, on Podbean. I don't know if that will help. We've got some people. We've got David saying, I don't know whether that's places you've been, David, or places you'd like to go, to Canada, St. John's, Rocky Mountains. Wow, Canada actually is on my bucket list. I haven't been to Canada, but certainly looks incredible. And I do love maple syrup. Maple syrup with bacon and pancakes is the best breakfast for me. So I would actually love to go get a maple syrup at the source, which I'm pretty sure is from Canada. But now I'm showing my weakness is geography. Let me see if we can just invite our guest now. Elsa, I'm just inviting you again, and hopefully we will have you join in very, very soon. Bear with me, everyone. I know you're always very patient with us on a Friday while we try and sort out our little technical gremlins. If you've got any questions for Elsa, just while we're waiting for Elsa to join, do feel free to type them in the chat. And just to let you know, we've got lots of other guests coming up on my show in the next few weeks. I've got a teacher, Jared, who'll be joining us from Texas, actually, on my next show. Jared was a teacher here in the UK and now teaches in Texas. He'll be joining us 5 a.m. USA time. That's the kind of dedicated guest we have on Teachers Talk Radio. He'll be joining us 5 a.m. to talk about what he's kind of noticed working. And Elsa's here. Amazing. Elsa, you're here. I'm going to come to you in 5 seconds. Jared will be talking to us about kind of international differences between teaching in the UK and the USA. So stay tuned for that. That'll be on my next show in the future. But without further ado, Dr. Elsa Lee is in the studio. Elsa, can you hear me? Wonderful. And Elsa, we can hear you as well. That's fantastic. So Dr. Elsa is here to talk to us about environmental sustainability education. I hope I've said that right. Elsa, how's your week been so far?
Thanks. It's been restful. I had a really nice break over the Christmas and New Year break, which I celebrate with joy. And so it's just been getting back into work, getting back to the routine. Thank you for being so patient with me. I think I hadn't enabled the microphone.
Oh yeah, Elsa, I'm not sure if you've got any headphones that you can connect. Oops. Oh, sorry, Elsa. I was just saying, I'm not sure if you've got any headphones, if you're able to connect any headphones to your phone. It might make you slightly louder. If you have got any headphones, we can hear you, but just very, very quietly. Oh, David has just told me that Quebec produces 70% of the world's maple syrup. Oh, good to know. I mean, I don't need that much. I don't need 70% of the world's maple syrup, David. But you might think I have got a very sweet tooth. I'm happy with one bottle. But certainly I'll have to look that up. Elsa, can you hear us okay now?
I can hear you very clearly, so I'm just trying to find the headphones.
Oh, perfect. Just looking for headphones. That's great. No problem. The good news is we can hear you, but just very quietly. So please take time to find some headphones. No rush. We've got you here. That's the main thing. We will happily sit back and relax and wait for you. Welcome as well. Edward's just joined. Simon has joined. We've got lots of people listening in. Anna is listening live. So welcome to everyone that is listening in. We're just waiting to speak with Dr. Elsa Lee today, a very experienced, very wise educator who astounds me with all the amazing things that they are always doing. And I'm very excited.
He's going to be able to talk. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you, Elsa. Very quiet. Anyone listening on the chat, can you hear Elsa well? I don't know whether it's actually just me, whether it's my headphones. But Elsa, we can hear you. It just seems a little bit quiet on my end.
Having trouble with being able to improve that situation right now.
Don't worry, no worries.
Go, and then we can work it out afterwards, maybe.
No problems. Yeah, David's just confirmed that it is a little bit faint. Your end, Elsa. I don't know if your headphones have connected okay. I don't know if you've got a pair you could plug in maybe, but don't worry, no rush at all.
The mic, what just happened?
Oh, it's still just a little bit quiet, Elsa. Oh, I hear rustling. I'm manifesting positive audio. I definitely hear rustling. I'm hoping that's some good rustling.
Hear me now?
Still rather quiet this end, Elsa. I think if you have ones you can plug in, or even if you have Bluetooth ones, they might work as long as they have a microphone.
The issue I'm having is that none of the ones I have actually got a microphone. I didn't consider that actually.
Oh, don't worry. It might be, Elsa, if we have an issue with audio, it could be we can rearrange our show. So please don't worry. If you can't find headphones now, I can happily lend you some. We can rearrange. So please don't stress.
I have headphones in my office. I'm not in my office today.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. I know it's the great thing about usually using laptops is we're just so used to having the microphones built in, which is a blessing, isn't it? But don't worry, if you're not able to find any, we can easily rearrange. We can see this as the trailer.
Good. So it's just not, because what I've got are not going to help.
Oh, please don't worry. Don't worry, Elsa. If you don't have any, unfortunately, it has to be joining through your phone. That's the only slightly irritating thing about our show is it is phone only. But what we could do, Elsa, maybe we'll finish this show shortly, and I'll get in touch with you. We can arrange another date. Would that be okay?
It is okay to do that, but if there's no other solution, we can do that.
I'm trying to think. What other headphones, or do you have any? Even if you have any that you normally plug in, like to your laptop, that might be able to attach to your phone device. I'm currently using a massive pair, a gaming pair of my son's, so they don't have to be just a normal headphone. Any headphone that would connect to your phone would be.
I have the headphones, but I don't have the microphone. They don't have a microphone attached.
Oh, I see. They just don't have a microphone. Oh, David's just said it's clearer. Right, I'm using David as my assistant. David, you're like my teaching assistant. David, can you hear Elsa enough that we could continue? I'm going to wait for David to feed back in the chat.
I should say something to see if he can hear me.
He said should be okay. Okay, Elsa, if you're happy, let's go with it. I think as long as people can hear you, crank up your volume. I can hear you enough to communicate, Elsa. So hopefully we can carry on with the show. So without further ado, then, welcome everyone. Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. We're here on the Friday morning break with me, Poppy Gibson, and my guest, Dr. Elsa Lee. Good morning, Elsa.
Good morning. We'll try again.
Perfect. So, Elsa, let's begin then. Please tell us all about you, all about your journey from the start of your career up to where you are now, please.
Okay, so I started out as a teacher in around about 98 was when I did my PGCE. So I started out doing an undergraduate science degree, which I did in Edinburgh. So I was in the Scottish system. And then I went to the English system and I did a PGCE at King's College in London. And that then led me into teaching science, so in secondary schools. And I was a secondary school science teacher for 8 years in the UK and also in Mexico City. And then I, at that point, I really loved teaching. It's obviously, it has, it provides you with lots of challenge, but it's also very joyful, and you feel like you can make a difference in people's lives. So I really did enjoy it. But I did feel like after 8 years that I wanted to consider how I could I was sort of got to a point where I felt like I needed a little bit of a change in my career. And initially, I didn't think of leaving teaching. I thought I was going to come back into teaching, but I just wanted to spend a bit of time studying and see what that brought me. Part of that was because I was really interested in environmental sustainability education issues, and I felt that the curriculum that I was using at the time wasn't really allowing me to do what I wanted, or at least I didn't know how to use that curriculum and the policy that went with it in a way that would enable me to do what I wanted with it. I've always been interested in environmental issues, from my childhood. So I want that, and that was why I wanted to be a science teacher. And I heard you mention geography teachers earlier. Of course, geography teachers are very important in this. But science also has a lot to offer, and we'll talk in a bit about all the other opportunities there are. But yeah, so that was my motivation for going back to study.
Mhm.
And so I went and I did a master's at Bath University. And that master's was quite ahead of its time, I guess. It was in 2007. And I did a master's in environmental education. That was the title of the master's. And I worked there with a number of people like Bill Scott and Stephen Goff and Paul there. These were all people that were there at the time when I was there. Are you still hearing me, Poppy?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just enjoying hearing your journey. I can hear you.
And in that master's, we looked at things like what was the impact of children learning about environmental issues like recycling in schools? How did that affect their home life? So did they take those messages home? So that was an early kind of idea that we were looking at. And then after that, I thought, while I was doing it, I initially thought, well, this will be really useful and I'll go back into the classroom after this. But then I really enjoyed studying and I really loved the opportunity to think and analyze and focus on a particular issue. And I felt like I was doing something that was at that time really not many people were doing, and I felt like it was really important. So it seemed like an amazing opportunity when it became clear that I was able to apply for some funding for a PhD, and I just grabbed that opportunity with both hands and feet, and dived into it, and so then I got funding and I did my PhD at Bath. It took about 4 years because I, also had a family during that time. So yeah, it was, and that was the kind of beginning of my current phase of my journey, I guess. That I had my teaching career, and I did about 10 years altogether of teaching, and then I did 5 to 6 years of studying, including the master's and the PhD. And then I, that's where it led me into working in research in the field.
My goodness, it's quite a journey. It's quite a journey, and a lot of interests and passions. And for anyone listening who knows Elsa in real life, Elsa is just like, I love Elsa's energy, just like up for anything. Hence coming on to a great journey. Amazing. And so your current role, what does your kind of current day-to-day look like?
After I finished my PhD, I got a job at the University of Cambridge doing research, and I did sort of 10 years of research, different types of research projects with children and with young adults. And then I will talk about one of those projects in a bit because I think it will be really interesting for people listening.
Amazing.
Yeah, but then I got a job I was lucky enough to get a job at Anglia Ruskin University, teaching on the primary education studies degree, which I absolutely love doing. And so you'll probably have picked up that I taught in a secondary school, but I did my research in primary schools. So the reason I feel confident in my experiences, is to teach on a primary education studies degree is because I spent lots of time talking to teachers when I was doing my own degree, my own postdoctoral or doctoral degree, and then my postdoctorate work was also with primary teachers quite often. So I feel, and yeah, so I feel really, really lucky to have had that experience across the secondary and the primary sector.
Yeah, really insightful. It must be. Fantastic. And now up into higher education.
And Poppy, you and I work together in that space, don't we, on questions?
Amazing. Wow. So quite a journey. So for everyone listening, I'm sure you've got lots of questions. So do feel free to type them in the chat if you're listening live. Amazing. So lots of incredible things that you've done there. And I can see how they've kind of been some of those threads working through what you've been interested in. I guess then that leads me to the next question. So Elsa, if you're happy, just for the next kind of half an hour, I've just got a whole list of questions to ask you. The first one then to pick up on, and I think this is a really interesting question as someone who's had their foot in so many, or I might say your finger in so many pies, educational pies. If we talk a bit about curriculum, so I know at the moment, Elsa, you lead one of the modules that I teach on, which is all about, it's a really interesting one. And any of my students listening, I know you started the module not enjoying it, but I think by the end of it, everyone agreed, didn't they, Elsa, that they've learned so much, because we look at from when the first national curriculum was put in schools in 1988 up until today, and how things have changed, different policy initiatives, thinking about the current national curriculum we have in our schools. So the next question I've got for you, Elsa, really, what do you think is the relationship from your point of view between curriculum and society?
That's a really an important question, and it is one that we, as you say, we start to explore in those modules, and I think many other primary education modules will do similar discussions. And I think in that particular module that we teach, we talk about the relationship with politics, but I think kind of broader question, as you've just pointed out, is that relationship between curriculum and society. So why is it that politicians are so interested in education and curriculum? Why is it so important? And you can imagine, you can think about that from different points of view, of course. And this is a really classic question in educational studies, the question of, does education create society or does it reflect it? And I think it's very difficult to come to a definitive answer, isn't it? Because I don't know how you feel about that particular question yourself.
I think you're right, and I think part of the problem is it doesn't always reflect the needs of our society. And I think obviously at the moment, a big thing we've got crashing into education, for the last couple of years, is artificial intelligence. And when you see how some educators are embracing AI and building it into their provision, and then some are totally terrified and banning AI and, telling students don't use AI. And I think just like with anything new in education, we can be scared, but if society is using one thing, I think we're doing our learners a disservice if we don't embrace it. What's your view on the old AI, Elsa?
Well, I mean, I think it's really key that there are so many ways in which we can use AI, and my feeling is that if we don't sort of work out how we're going to use AI, then AI is going to end up using us. That makes sense, and I think that's the important thing. And I completely agree that we do need to incorporate it into how we and policy about how to use it in school.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, children will be moving into society, and so they need to be able to have had an experience of it. And this is one of the things about how society changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Respond to that, and so curriculum, which is 10 years old, is definitely going to be at a point where it's definitely a point where we need to start thinking about changing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's hard, isn't it? Because I've met so many educators that say, this has been working well for 10 years. Why do I need to change it? But the answer for me would be because our world is changing. Like, our learners are changing. Their needs are changing. The way they engage with content is changing. So surely as a response, we as educators and our curriculum provision needs to change, right?
Absolutely. And I find that I totally have sympathy and, for people that do struggle, who have been to and they feel like it's working and why does it reach to it? I do feel sympathy for that. And I think when I was teaching, I probably felt really, more like that than I do. Yeah. But at the same time, it's really exciting, that opportunity to generate new content, think about the questions you've been exploring for 50 years. I know that I'm saying that it's very idealistic.
Yeah, definitely. No, really good points. And, sometimes we're reluctant because we know what we're teaching is good. And sometimes I think actually it's not always about changing the content, is it? But changing the delivery as well. So in that way, the curriculum needs to respond to society in the way we deliver it.
Absolutely. Of course, that AI has a huge, it's like a mathematics code, isn't
Exactly. Yeah, we'll see where AI takes us over the next 5-10 years. Our jobs might not even exist in a few years, Elsa. Yeah, let's hope so. Unless we get a nice redundancy package. Okay, amazing. Right, on to my next question then. So I'm aware time always goes so quick on Teachers Talk Radio. So this leads quite nicely into my next question then. I wanted to ask you, how do you think the way that this is interpreted influences policy?
So when you think about that relationship between society and curriculum, and if the society is changing, but also sort of that is often reflected in in the political parties and the elections that take place, and then the governings, the parties that end up governing with their own specific, goals and aims and ideologies. So that of course that does have an impact. So if a kind of if a government wants to have both reflect what is going on in society, but also in some ways help to create society by having its kind of policy that enables that to happen, then obviously it has a big impact on curriculum policy. And that is really interesting in many ways about our current curriculum. Because our current curriculum actually in many ways does pull back. So there's a lot of challenge and the depth of the curriculum. I'm not trying to minimize the sense that there's a lot of children. There's a previous terms of grammar, previous exploration. But one of the things that you've mentioned about AI being sick, another thing many of you will be aware of is that environmental sustainability is not explicit in many places. So that's one of the ways I would tell it. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was in 2010 when, there's lots of interesting things. Change of government, there was a curriculum in place, but then and that curriculum did reference environmental issues to some degree. And then in 2013, that was changed, and some of those science, as you know, for explicit nature, was minimized. So that's one of the things I'd like to.
Great. And I think I totally agree with everything that you're saying. And I do think politicians take education very seriously. We only have to look at when election time is coming and they have their, education manifestos at the front of their agenda. But then if we question those people that are sitting in the cabinet, what did their own primary education look like? What did their childhood and upbringing look like? And for the most part, I would say some of those politicians might be detached from what we are having to do in our mainstream classrooms, right?
Because it's a long time since.
Yes.
it's very good. There's that current in your mind is the experience card. And often that for many of those politicians, their experience.
Mhm. Mhm, mhm. So many good points. I feel like we need like a trilogy of shows with you, Elsa. Let's zoom in on a bit of this then. I totally agree. Society's changing. So my next question: what does this mean for schools who want to teach ESE? And maybe as well, can you please just remind us kind of what ESE stands for people that are just joining and kind of what this looks like?
ESC stands for Environmental Sustainability Education. It's one term. You can talk about environmental education, climate change education, education for sustainability. I use environmental sustainability education. And so what this kind of slimmer curriculum from 2013 and 14, which is kind to school, it means is that slimmer, but also, heightened in terms of its challenge. There's said about that, that curriculum was designed to be kind of adaptable, I think. So you have to mix it, of course, that kind of school that way that's dated. But it is actually really interestingly adaptable because there is space. So although it's not obvious to teachers, I guess, with curriculum how to do that, or if they can do that, I feel that there's space that we can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think most schools are doing this well?
There are some schools that are doing an amazing job of it, but then I think other schools, we have. I think we were, thinking about, the sort of 24,000 schools that are just. And amongst that, there will be lots of good practical practice in this time. And for some of those times, they'll have more or less freedom to respond.
Yeah.
And that does take a large part on whether they are academy trusts or level of has on their class. So there's that variation. But I think many schools we would like to be able to do this, not because of the lack of support in policy, that curriculum policy, but also that, all of the other kind of things that are.
And it's hard as well when you think, we've got schools like you mentioned, these academy trusts that have the better funding and provision, but the catchment isn't always open to all. And part of it is a postcode lottery, isn't it, on which school you end up at and how well this is going to be covered.
And within that, another kind of little to consider there is, whether schools feel about the purpose of education, right? I think Morgan Phillips talked about that.
Oh, did you listen in to Morgan's episode? Wonderful.
So Morgan talked about this in the session in December and how important he thought it is to consider the purpose of education in these questions. But though some schools, might feel that this isn't that the aim of education, or teachers might feel like really the purpose of education is to enable children to learn, and to learn the important knowledge that is present in the curriculum, and has been, seen as being important for a very long time. So, they might feel that it's not. A response to that is that, a novel side, and ready to should, I would totally agree that schools are, and not, it shouldn't be about changing behavior for mindfulness. That we take the relations, but it is, as we've said, and that kind of daily basis. So, not many of us believe that it's going to be something they're going to encounter in their future. So, not about like the publishing their opportunity So I think, there are very important reasons to do it, whilst I also have some sympathy for the difficulty of doing that and the kind of reasons why people might feel.
Yeah, no, it does, and I agree. It's really difficult, and I think it's a problem much bigger than the teacher themselves, isn't it? Because we know people go into teaching because they're good people. Like you're not going in it for the money or the fame. You're going in it because you want to make a difference, and it's really hard when, like you say, our learning should be centered around the individual, but how realistic is that?
And when and if that individual, this shoot is going to and that becomes more matter more important. And so it's become something where it used to be about avoiding it, because we felt like we should be burdening children with the responsibility to be is because without it, they're not good. There's a real chance of they won't be able to manage in society, haven't been exposed to ideas and tools to know how much you care about well-being. As the children who get it place through the manifestation of big anxiety,
Yeah,
very difficult essentially questions, but I suppose and that is another reason why I think teachers might be very difficult. What the thing will give children might worry. So that we do. And in fact, luckily, I did mention earlier that I started this study in 2007, and before I started academic in 2007, but before I was there was another 30 or 30 years of research. I don't know what have been thinking for a long time. It's evaluated it out there. How
that's amazing, and I think you're right. It's so important that we are finding projects like this where we're showing children the bigger picture. But equally, I'll sit down with my children and watch a kind of program about our planet, about Earth, on a Sunday night with my children, and you see animals' habitats being destroyed, and I end up feeling anxious, like and also powerless. And I think it's really hard, isn't it, when we've got children dealing with their own anxiety, to consider this kind of, as you say, eco grief and eco anxiety on top. But also we need them to understand these things, because otherwise how they won't want to be part of the solution.
I mean, if they don't understand them, how will they then themselves deal with that be really, really paralyzed inside? But as you went towards, it's not just young children, they already have daily that's feeling will provide us. But when but that, as I say, and I think Morgan, and there are opportunities to be able to solve sort of things. They don't have them at least particularly about this issue of anxiety. I mean, there are so many people. One of the ways that there are so many people work, adults work. So,
No, definitely. I totally agree with you. Sorry, also just someone saying there's a little bit of interference on the line, so I'll just mute when I'm not talking to you. Yeah, so many. It's really hard, isn't it? I think especially with children, to be treading that line between wanting them to know the truth, but also wanting to protect them, isn't there?
very, very difficult to try to, and for teachers, we put it a lot of be helping teachers to understand that or helping teachers to know all of the resources that are available to support them, I think is really important. And I see that as part of my goal, to try and find ways to enable teachers to access the kind of resources that are available and the kind of training. I think there's been some really interesting surveys that have shown that teachers want to do this, but they don't feel capacity to. They don't feel like they're training prepared for that. And I think that is changing, right? I think training is really shifting towards considering these issues and finding ways to support. But so I think.
Yeah, let's hope so. I hope you're right. Change is coming, and I wonder if I'm reflecting on what you're saying. I wonder if part of the issue, particularly here in England, is that we are almost at this place of geographical privilege. Like I was saying at the start of the show, Elsa, I'm taking my children to Tabuk in Saudi Arabia. After the Easter break, I'm going there to visit a school. And I was looking on Google Maps with my children, and obviously Tabuk's in the middle of the desert. So there's like nothing there apart from this school compound. And we were looking these really strange circles. It looked almost like alien crop circles on Google Maps. And I messaged my contact and said, "What are those circles all over the compound?" And they said, "Oh, they're irrigation circles, so we can actually try and grow some, live crops out there." And each one's got like a sprinkler going round on its own little kind of circle axis, and it was like, wow, like we're just so used here, we could just go to the supermarket and buy anything, and it's imported from everywhere. And I can see West, who's just joined us listening in, has said he's got tornadoes right now over in USA. So I think in a way we have been able to protect our children from some of those geographical and climate worries. What do you think?
It's a very interesting point, and perhaps in some ways, well, this is maybe, I'm not sure this is controversial, but just turning that on its head, one might argue that because they've been protected from that through that sort of geopolitical location, then perhaps when suddenly it becomes clear, it's almost more of a worry, because if you've grown up, with those issues already part of your daily experience, perhaps you naturally learn that, how to respond and well, naturally, but it's part of your daily experience to know that you need to be responding to these problems. Then perhaps that makes a difference, to how much you then worry about it. Because if you have never experienced it and you haven't learned how to respond to it, then the concern levels, you can imagine, are heightened. Whereas if you're constantly having to respond, then perhaps the concern levels are, you feel a bit more empowered because you know how to respond. And I think that's one of the key ways in which schools help children, is for them really to understand that there are ways to respond. Right? And just want to say, that isn't to minimize, the severity of the experience of someone living in the middle of the desert at all. But I'm just talking about this one specific issue, around the concern that result from suddenly being exposed to this, existential question, which you might have been protected.
Thank you, Elsa. No, that's so true, and I think that's why, like you say, it's so important that through our teacher training provision, through our primary education studies degrees, we are bringing these things to the forefront for our students who might have gone through primary and secondary not having these things on their radar, and now we can actually start to, educate them more about the environment and the way that they can be prepared to go and teach the next generation. So maybe like the Eco Capabilities project that you've been working on.
So that project is a really nice one, particularly be applied in secondary schools as well. But it's particularly useful for people who are interested in primary school education. So that project was led by Nicola Walsh, initially at Anglia Ruskin, but it's now at UCL, where Nicola has moved to. And I worked with her to come up, to put the project together, and I was part of the research team. And what we did in that project was really try to focus in areas of high deprivation. So working with schools where access to nature was limited, already, and sort of perhaps so that was a kind of element of what we were doing, was thinking about how can we help to help schools who are in these in more deprived areas to kind of see the kind of affordances of their own spaces to enable children to access the natural world, and similarly also with the arts. So one of the ways that we can help children to process these notions of eco-anxiety is to support them to access different forms of art. Obviously, like about art, I really dance, music, performance, those sorts of different types. There is some evidence to suggest that people who experience socioeconomically is deprived in whatever way, don't have the same levels of access to the arts. So what we were trying to understand here was what happens when we connect the arts and the natural world together. How does that enable children to develop and think about these different issues that we've been talking about, but also just to develop more broad and what capabilities can support. And so the Eco Capability Project is one that was exploring those connections and was successful in kind of identifying a range of different ways in which children can benefit from doing art in the outdoors, particularly in relation to their well-being. And one of the helps I will just highlight of that project now, because the project is finished, but one of its outputs has been some teacher training courses, and I think I'm right in saying that these are freely available via University College London UCL's website, and you can just do a little search to find them, and you then maybe benefit from that. Those training programs if you're interested in this work and you want to develop understanding.
Thank you so much, Alison. That Eco Capabilities Project sounds amazing. But again, this kind of links us back to what we were saying with the first questions to you around, does curriculum reflect society? Because we can see, even my oldest child is in year 8, so he's going to turn 13 this year. Elsie is a teenager, but he loves drama, music, art, graphic design, but still, aren't we seeing these things marginalized? So your project, even in itself, shows that we can deliver these things well, deliver these messages through arts and humanities and, expressive arts, but still, particularly in the primary school, we're seeing them so marginalized.
It's a big problem, but, which is partly to do with the questions of curriculum and what the curriculum affords opportunities for people to do. But one of the things that we that another bit of work that it was doing was on this thing called the Track Changes curriculum, which was to look at the curriculum that we have and just see, well, how can we make this curriculum work for environmental education, for the arts, and that curriculum is actually also freely available and has been used by lots of different teachers to sort of support them to think about how they can take what they are mandated to do and still do it in a slightly different way. And you were mentioning about the way that we go about doing these things, and that curriculum is there. It is adaptable, and it was originally designed to be adaptable. So as long as you're doing what it says within your plan, there are ways of doing it that use the arts, use the outdoors. So I think there really are opportunities, but it's easy for me to say I know how difficult it is when you're in the classroom to make that happen, which is why I wanted to highlight that Track Changes curriculum, which is available, freely available again online on the Teach the Future organisation's website.
Thank you, Alison. That's so helpful for that signposting as well. And I think you're right. I think change is coming, and I think that's the thing that I know you and I instill in our students, that although teachers will always be bound by curriculum, what you do have is your own power and influence as an educator in the way you deliver. Well, again, depending where you work, you might have a bit more freedom than others, but exactly, it's how you deliver it, it's how you share that message, it's the extracurricular things you can offer and the way you can raise awareness in your own way. And I think that's what makes us all stay teachers, isn't it? Because despite everything else, despite the lack of funding, all the paperwork, we can make a difference. And that's kind of the main thing teachers need to remember, isn't it?
And I did want to also say about, please, of course, because it's very easy, to talk about primary, but, preschool as well, but the whole movement, the forest school movement, which I know many of you will have already heard about. I'm sure everybody's heard about it. That's what I think that maybe they're happy to be. But the forest school movement is another indicator of change. And there's so much that can be used from that, even if you're not a forest practitioner, but being able to use that as a way to encourage you to think differently about how you do your education, the spaces that you do your education in. Because sometimes, especially for younger children, it's really about just opportunities to be in those spaces and then thinking about how to develop, your curriculum, again, what you need to do, but in a different space. That's right. It's another way of thinking about how do we use what we have and what we have to do. Is maybe it's just about taking it outside.
Oh, it really does. Yeah, I remember when I was a primary school teacher and we always had to do reading on an afternoon, and in the summer I'd go, let's read our books outside, and it was just the best, the best moment. We'd all, skip out and find a shady tree. It's amazing how something so simple as moving space can make a difference. Oh my gosh, Elsa, we're at the end of the show. So can I please ask if anyone wants to continue these conversations with you and ask more about how they can deliver ESC in their schools, or maybe some inspiration for finding that different approach, what's the best way that they can come and kind of find you, please?
Most of the on LinkedIn, and this one find my email address. So the resources I did. Just think it's really clever. So that he does amazing. It is.
Amazing. Elsa, thank you so much. I did warn you it'd go quickly today. Time flies when we're having fun. But Elsa, I've put your email address into the Podbean chat if anyone's listening live, elsa.lee@aru.ac.uk. Elsa, can I just say a huge thank you for coming on the radio this morning? And I wish you a wonderful weekend. Are you doing anything nice, Elsa?
It's all gone out of my head.
Just go and have a nice cup of tea. Well, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Hopefully no snow, although they keep saying it's going to snow, so we shall see. But Elsa, thank you so much. Do take care, enjoy the weekend, and wishing you all the best for an amazing 2024. And to everyone who's joined us today, thank you to our frequent listeners. We've got West here today, David, welcome Martha, who's been listening in, Sam, we've got Emma, Anna, everyone that's listening in and people listening on the radio. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure we're all feeling very inspired after listening to Dr. Elsa's wise words. Wishing you all the best for the weekend. I'll be back soon with my next show. We'll be talking to Jared about what it's like to be a teacher in Texas. So any questions for him, do let me know in advance of the show. But wishing you all the very best. Take care. West, stay safe with those tornadoes. Hope the dogs are all okay. And just everyone, please be kind to yourself. Be back with you very, very soon. Take care.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.
Even